Hello, my name is Nikolaj. I've been doing this Handin for the computer graphics programming course, and I would like to run through it and make a compilation and try to cover as precisely and short the functions used. The objective of the assignment is to parse an XML file and then use the information in drawing an image using openGL. So the openGL and the GLUT libraries have been added to this project, and also libxml and libpng has been installed in order to make this project work. Besides these two header files and the main file, the project also contains two data files, a character file and a diffuse. It's a PNG file, which is the 2D texture image which is being applied to the model, and here's the XML file with all the values that are being stored into arrays and variables and then used in this main file to draw. So let's jump right into it. We have a lot of variables here declared, arrays and just single variables of the type float and integers. These are used to store the values, and also here we have some large arrays to store the values from the XML file, which is in a bigger amount than 3 or 4. These variables are very important because they are used everywhere in the rest of this code to draw and use settings for camera and light and colors. So in the first function, the init view here, we use GLUT functions from the library to set the window position, set the window size and create a window, and also in the display mode we apply the buffers and we apply the colors and the depth and also the alpha channel. Then we go on using some GL functions. We set the background using a variable retrieved from the document. I will show you which one. It's actually this one, but since they're both the same in this node of background, I just used one of them as the color. Okay, and then we enable the depth and the lighting using GL enable and also a shade model GL smooth, which is to deploy anti-aliasing. So in the next function we have a texture variable which holds the path and the width and the height and the data behind that. I'll come back to this later in this commentary. Okay. Next function is the draw function, which is actually where the most exciting things are taking place. Basically everything here is done by using the GL functions from the library. Okay. GL clear is used to clear the buffers, and also the GL load identity is used to clear the current transformation. And the next variable is light location, the last one in the array. The last index in the array is set to 1 because then we activate the point light according to openGL standards. If we were to have a directional light, we would set this to 0. Then we use GL light to set the position and use GL light setting, and also by using the light location values from the XML file. Then we use GL rotate to orient the view, and the first parameter here is the angle that it takes. So this is calculated into radians, and it's the last parameter of the array, which is actually the first here in this function. Then we use GL translate also to set the camera. Instead of using GL lookat, we just translate the world view instead of the object we're looking at. So the next thing we're doing is starting the matrix where all the calculation is happening, and we use GL translate again to set the position of the object. according to the world and the view that we have been setting up here. So GL material is used to apply some reflectance from the lights, and these are used to with diffuse and specular, and it's basically on the front of the model only. We use GL bind texture to apply the texture from the library GL, and also this takes the variable texture, which contains a lot of data. I'll show you this from the header file over here. It's a pretty long header file with much code, and I will cover the basics of this. Okay, to return to this, we again use GL functions enable client state to activate the array to hold both texture coordinates and vertex and normals, so we can use them in the drawing and setting the textures onto the model. Then we use GL draw elements with the triangles, using the number of indexes which are unsigned int, and it takes of course the array which has all the information. I can show you this in the XML file. If we go down here, take the texture coordinate, it has a lot of floats which are the values for where the textures is being applied. Okay, so we disable the client states again, and then we for the arrays, and then we stop the matrix calculation, and then we force the drawing to execute, and then we swap the buffers if that is needed. For instance, if we're resizing the window. And we have a reshape function which sets the viewport and also matrix mode and GL load identity and the GLUT perspective if the window is being resized. And the field of view is of course the view of the camera, calculated in radians, since C and C++ normally takes radians and not degrees. Okay. Keyboard function here is used if we want to use the keyboard to exit or do anything in our program. And we go on to the load XML file function. This is also a pretty important function because it is the one that saves all the information from the XML file into arrays and variables. Okay, we have 3 different types of functions that are being called here. This is the property to float, which gets the property from a node, which gets the property from a node. Actually, because the node both has a header but also a subject in the node, it has to take 2 strings, and these are being set here and saved into these arrays or variables. And again here, this function is used to pick up 4 floats. I can show you an example of this from the XML file where we have 4 floats in this orientation, 4 floats there and here. So they have to be retrieved with a different function, which was this one. The other ones are used for 3 floats and one for 1 float. So the next thing we have here in this function is variables which holds the values from functions being used to save values from the XML files into arrays. These arrays are vertices, indices, points, and num index, which is used to draw. We use the XML free doc function from the XML library to free memory. In the last function here, we have the main function, which calls the other functions which I've described earlier, and uses GLUT, display function, reshape, keyboard function to apply the value from the functions I also described earlier. we have the GLUT application event processing loop, which has to be applied in this application. And since this is not a void function, we return a value saying that the program is okay. Okay, the PNG texture header is used to retrieve data from the PNG to a 2D texture. It checks if the PNG is 8-bit, which it has to be, and also uses GL functions to set up functions from the GL library. We both define textures, text image 2D, and text parameters, which all takes the values from the pictures and then uses it to create a texture object. Again, we use functions to free the memory. This header file is consisting of the libxml library functions, and we have a recursive function here to return the nodes and to shift around in the nodes to check if they are consisting of string, characters, or integers or floats. Down here we have the functions which I showed you in the other file. They are used by the scanf function, which reads for strings and then takes the value out as a float, saves it into a variable called value. Since it's only one float, we can store it in a single variable, but down here where it's free floats, we have to save it in an array of 4 indexes. Also with the property to float 4, which also retrieves 4 floats from the XML file. It's also stored in arrays. And then we have 2 different functions: property to float array and property to int array function. They are integer functions, and in here we have a while loop which scans for floats and then saves them into the array and uses the str token to set a token starting from the first position, starting from the string, which is then saved as the first position. We increment moving further through the values, again saving them in the array. This array is being declared here in the main file and also used here in the main file with all the point values from this XML file. This long set of values here. I don't think I have any more to say before this video becomes too long. I hope I've been through everything: the openGL and the libxml and libpng and also GLUT. I of course need to make a little compilation so you can see that the model is indeed beautiful. There is a little guy. Okay, so that's all for me, Nikolai Geithel, and I'll just check that I don't have any more to say. No, I think I've been through everything. It's obvious that we use a lot of functions that have been saved in the libraries that has been installed, and this is of course a pre-compiled project, so some of the code has been written by Paolo, our teacher, but most of the work has been done by ourselves, I would say. So, thank you.